What is going on, guys? It's the Variety Film Brothers. I'm Andrew.
I'm Thomas.
And in today's Variety discussion, we're going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Something that I don't think a lot of people keep in mind when they talk about this movie is that it really is supposed to be the culmination of the whole Skywalker saga. You know, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and then this is it. You know, like it's supposed to be this mega epic conclusion to everything. And does it do that? No.
No.
This movie is such a massive disappointment. This movie really could not have done much more wrong. I'm not going to lie. This is one of my least favorite movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd say it's the worst because there's just so many bad movies out there, but this is really bad. This is exactly what I think a lot of people were worried about when Disney bought Star Wars, because this movie really feels like it was just made by just a room of people who don't know what they're doing. Last Jedi and this movie are polar opposites. Like, people have said that enough, but I really can't get over it. Like, The Last Jedi is this overly pretentious movie that thinks it's better than you, and tries to, like, be super deep and philosophical and all that. And then this movie is surface level fast food crap.
Yeah.
Like, this is it feels like a fast food movie, this does, because it's so cheap. It's so hollow. Like, there is nothing of substance to this movie.
It's so Taco Bell.
I mean, honestly, I think that's a pretty good comparison. Taco Bell is not very good either, in my opinion. I mean, that's just me. I feel like I'm going to get attacked for that. So clearly, as you can probably tell, we're not very big fans of this movie. So let's just go on and get to our scores, because I think they're going to be even lower than you expect. Thomas, what do you score this movie?
Alright, now, I'm going to score this movie as episode, like, it's made for the whole saga.
Right.
It's made to...
Like, it's supposed to be this epic finale of the whole Skywalker series.
As if episode 6 didn't do that already, but we're just gonna set that aside.
And much better.
And much better.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it a 12.
I give this one a 15.
Okay.
So, again, we're right,
Yeah.
pretty much of the same thought. And I know what you're probably thinking. That is way too low. Sure, it's bad, but is it really, like, 15 level bad? And we're going to get more into that, but basically I have to say, yeah, I think it's really that bad. And the fact that this movie does have so much pressure on it to be the finale of the series just makes it that much worse. Like, on its own, it's already a terrible movie.
Yeah.
Like, just terrible. But the things that it does to the saga are just dreadful. Like, we've got lightsaber band-aids now. We've got the Death Star, like, mostly still intact. Let's be honest here. It has moving doors, operational TIE fighters,
Glass panels,
full glass panels, the
His chair's
freaking
still there.
chair. Like, dude, it's just insane what this movie does to, like, not just like the legacy of the story, but the legacy of the characters. We completely took Anakin's sacrifice right out from under him. Like, it's criminal is what it is, and then we don't even have him show up. I don't care if they brought back Hayden Christensen to record 3 lines. That's not enough, you know what I mean? Like, this is supposed to be the finale. We're supposed to take elements from all of the previous movies here. Like, it's like a final episode of a TV show. Like, it has to be the culmination of the whole story. If anything, this movie only honors one movie of the previous 8, and that's Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And what do you know? That's the one J.J. Abrams wrote. Like, of course he's gonna jerk off his own movie. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, that doesn't stop us from having plenty of rip-off scenes from the originals as well. We have yet another rip-off scene where Rey is being shown her friends being destroyed and Palpatine's taunting her. We already had that in The Last Jedi, you know, with Snoke doing the same thing. It wasn't good then, wasn't good now. It was only ever good in Return of the Jedi, which is when it was originally written. This movie, it really thinks that it's giving us exactly what we want to see. But it doesn't. Like, when we get to the scene where Luke catches his lightsaber, first off, he should have grabbed it and said, "What the hell did you do to this thing?" Because it's got the thing on it. Really calls into question what all Force ghosts can do. You know, like, we do have that line in A New Hope where Obi-Wan is like, "If you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine." And to me, like a lot of people use that as justification for Luke being able to raise the X-Wing in this movie, or for Yoda being able to use frickin' lightning from the sky to torch a tree. Like, they use that as an excuse. They're like, oh, well, Obi-Wan said Force ghosts are powerful. I always took it as in the knowledge that they can pass on is what's powerful. You know what I mean? And that means so much more than just Force lightning. And we'll go on and talk more about Force lightning while it's on my mind. The scene where Rey accidentally uses Force lightning might just be my least favorite scene. Why am I saying least favorite? Like I'm trying to sugarcoat it. I hate that scene. That might be my most hated scene in all of Star Wars because it takes so much out of consideration. It's revealed later that she's a Palpatine, and we'll get more into that. But so they assume it's some kind of genetic ability, which is insane to me. Like, how did you ever watch any of the previous movies? Well, wait, you didn't. You just watched, like, Empire Strikes Back and called it a day. But if you watched any other of the previous movies, you would know that that is a Force ability that you have to learn, just like anything else. But again, Rey can just do that without even being aware of it. You know what I mean? Like, that's insane.
No. She was able to do it because she got mad enough.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, just has a fundamental misunderstanding of Star Wars. It's not something that you can accidentally do. And I mean, like, I guess I shouldn't be all that surprised, since literally every Force ability comes natural to Rey. This movie tries to, like, mirror Return of the Jedi in that we're supposed to worry for the main character turning to the dark side. But we have all these scenes where Rey is terrified of the dark side. Like, she doesn't want it at all. If we actually heard her say, maybe I need the dark side to end the First Order. We've got all these thousands of Star Destroyers out there. We'll get more into that later. Trust me, that's another thing I really hate about this movie, is just the terrible sense of scale. But, like, if we actually had a scene where Rey was like, maybe I need the dark side, maybe I can control it, then I might think, ooh, she's really thinking about it. But, like, no, we have the scene where she Force lightnings for the first time, and it kills, or she thinks it kills Chewbacca. And honestly, you might as well leave him for dead at this point. You've killed off all the other original trilogy characters, and literally every shot we see of Chewbacca, he just looks depressed as all hell. Honestly, maybe just end his suffering.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we have the scene later where she sees the vision of her Sith self with shark teeth. And it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
But I do like to say, though, at the very beginning, Kylo Ren was not on Mustafar.
Yeah, the set they have for Mustafar, like, I get it, not the entire planet is going to look the exact same, but they literally have trees, snow on the ground. I mean, it's probably supposed to be ash, but it just looks like snow. Bro, how about we just go back to the exact spot where Anakin and Obi-Wan fought? Yeah. Like, if you're going to go back to Mustafar, let's go to a place that people are going to recognize. That goes back to what I was talking about earlier, about this movie being a terrible finale, is that it doesn't pay tribute to any of the previous movies. It tries to say, oh, this is Mustafar, but honestly, that just sounds like something they threw in, like, after the movie came out, because they never say Mustafar. I don't think, right? Like, Kylo never says, like, we're on Mustafar, looking for the thing. I think that's just something they added in later. Like, somebody asked, hey, there's a red sky to this planet. Is this Mustafar, maybe? And they were like, I don't know what the hell that is, but sure. You know?
Just like, yes.
Yeah. Will you buy an action figure if we say this is Mustafar? Will you buy a Sith Trooper action figure?
Will you buy this on DVD?
Yeah, like, I think you could have actually done a really interesting, because this movie is kind of a, what is it called, a fetch quest? Like in a video game where you kind of just have to, like, get a bunch of random things, and there's not really much of a plot, but you kind of just get, like, one item that moves you through the next few levels or scenes, whatever you want to say. You actually could have made that interesting in a way here. You could have, like, taken elements from previous Star Wars movies, like, I don't know, like, maybe something from the Clone Troopers. Oh, that's another thing. The clones, dude. There's literally a freaking line where this dude says, dark science, cloning, secrets only the Sith knew. And I'm like, how could you get this wrong, guys? How could you literally completely disregard not only Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, but a little show called The Clone Wars? Like, is there not, like, a bulletin list of, like, really important Star Wars things that people who are directing the Star Wars movies need to know? Like, that's such a big piece of information, and I know it would go over most people's heads, especially if they're not huge Star Wars fans and maybe they just want to watch a movie. So, people like that aren't really going to realize how wrong that is. But it is insane how bad this oversight is. Like, and no one cared. I just love Clone Troopers, so something about that oversight really just kicks me right in the heart.
So, if I was in this film, I would try to, like, do as much research as possible to make sure that the people who do know this stuff know that I did the research to make it correct. But no, it seems like the subject was about World War II, and I made it about Avengers Civil War.
Yeah. It doesn't even try. It's the thing. This movie does not even try. It literally, this movie goes so fast, too. But here's the thing. it should be going faster because like this movie takes place over a 16-hour, I think that was what it was, about 16-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, that is insane.
There was so much
Dude,
talking.
exactly. There are so many scenes where no one is really that urgent. You've got at least 1,000 Star Destroyers. Like, the Resistance should not have been able to defeat them. That was just insane. And I know they like come up with some excuses for it, like, oh, they took down the tower, so now they're all gonna come down. But like,
no,
you know, and it's all just for like pointless visuals. You know, like it's once again J.J. Abrams saying, I don't know how to write a deeper story, so I'm just gonna make everything else bigger. You know, in The Force Awakens we had a bigger Death Star, and now we just have a bigger fleet of Star Destroyers that can apparently destroy planets on their own. And I'm just like, guys, we don't need to destroy planets to get a message across. You know, like come up with a new way for an enemy to be intimidating other than just destroying planets. Use your brain is all I ask.
Yeah.
Instead of just ripping off the original trilogy over and over again.
Also, why is there a map for Palpatine?
Yeah, that's a great question. For some reason, the sequel trilogy thinks that when somebody doesn't want to be found, they're going to make a map to figure out exactly how to find them. Like, Luke didn't want to be found, made a map to find him. Palpatine doesn't want to be found, made a map to find him. And first off, that's a stupid plot point. Kylo just freaking breaks one of them with his bare hands, and it's like, I know Kylo Ren works out or whatever, but this is like made of metal, or it could be made of Beskar for all we know.
Also, how do you feel about Kylo Ren's helmet?
I'm very glad you brought this up. So Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi smashed his helmet to bits, and I believe that ship that he smashed it on blew up. I'm pretty sure that was the ship that Holdo drove into, or at least one of them, because somehow that destroyed like all those ships. But yeah, that helmet was broken. Dude, that shattered into at least 100 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And he just got space monkeys to hot glue it together. Yeah. The original species in this movie that we see, I get it, you know, we can't completely just reuse everything from the first 6 movies. Like, you know, we're gonna see some new species here and there, and that's fine. The freaking space monkeys, dude, they just look like monkeys with like pointy ears or some shit. And I'm like, that's really the best you got? And Babu Frick, dude, I hate Babu Frick. And I know, for some reason, everybody loves Babu Frick. Even the people that don't like the sequels, they're like, hey, they got one thing right, and that's frickin' Babu Frick. And I'm like, dude, if they ever have Babu Frick in a video game, like one of the Star Wars video games, I'm
killing him.
I'm throwing that thing off a cliff.
Force lightning and everything.
Yeah. But anyway, the helmet, for some reason, he has that, like, glued back and puts that on and wears it most of the time again.
That's red.
And it's, for some reason, like, how do the cracks stay so hot that they're red throughout, like, most of the movie? So what was even the point of that? I think it was just because J.J. Abrams liked the helmet, and he didn't like that Rian Johnson broke the helmet. So he just wanted the helmet to be out there and exist. I swear to God, if they make, like, in Episode 10, like, I know it's probably not going to be called Episode 10, but I'm going to call it Episode 10 until we know the official title. I swear to God, in Episode 10, if we have, like, the burned ashes, like, the burned, like, Kylo Ren's helmet, like they did for Darth Vader's helmet, I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk out of the theater, because you cannot keep doing that, you know? And we do see Vader's helmet again in this movie, and, like, dude, it's just, it's like clickbait, honestly. Yeah. Like, it's clickbait for people that, honestly, I don't think are really Star Wars fans. I think what JJ felt like he had to do was really include a lot of imagery, like, you know, the Darth Vader helmet, Anakin's lightsaber, X-Wings and TIE fighters, all this stuff. It's funny, because I actually think most of that is meant to keep non-Star Wars fans coming to these movies, you know, like, you know, because the real fans, I at least I don't, and we talked about this in The Force Awakens, I don't care if there's not an X-Wing in my Star Wars movie, you know what I mean? But really, it just destroys the story, you know what I mean? Like, particularly with the Vader helmet, like I was talking about, like, it takes me out of it. It feels like you're trying to sell me a product. It's like, hey, you remember this Darth Vader helmet? And I'm like, yeah, I grew up with the prequels and originals, of course I know what a Darth Vader helmet is. We had that time, let's move past it. You know what I mean? And so like I was saying, I swear if they try to do that with the Kylo Ren helmet, like the next Sith has like the burned Vader helmet and the burned Kylo Ren helmet. He's just building up a little collection. The choreography and all the action scenes are just terrible. It's all terrible.
You know that your choreography is shit whenever you have to use a force grab the other person's lightsaber.
Dude, the freaking force stopping of the lightsabers is such a lame move. Like, both like technically and visually, you know, because it's, for one, it's such a cheat, and that's why it's so boring, is because like it's such a quick way to end a fight. It's lame, dude. I think the only choreography we actually kind of liked in this movie was the Luke versus Leia scene.
Yeah.
And I don't think Leia should have been able to beat Luke at that point. I'm not going to nitpick about that too much. I'm not trying to be all like, oh, the girl shouldn't beat the boy. I'm just saying this is Luke, who has more experience.
So how do you feel about the Force heal?
That's actually a really interesting aspect, because I've seen a lot of people talk about this, and they'll still say, like, oh, I hate The Rise of Skywalker, but I'm fine with the Force healing. And I am somewhere in the middle. Like, this is another thing that The Mandalorian is trying to patch up for the sequels by having Grogu Force heal, and, like, nobody hates Grogu, you know? But the Force healing has always been, or maybe not always, but for a long time it's been a thing in video games and things like that. And so, you know, I mean, most of those are non-canon now, like The Force Unleashed. Thank you for taking that away from us, Disney. You know, so it's not a totally new concept. My problem with it is pretty much exactly my same problem with Force projection in The Last Jedi, is that it doesn't come with any sort of explanation. There's no backstory to it. You know, it's kind of just something that Rey realizes she can do. You know, and it doesn't make for very many cool scenes. Like, I think they really wanted it to have this big emotional impact when we saw those scenes. But, like, when she heals the snake, I don't care. I think that scene is another thing they really misunderstood about the Jedi. I think, like, Jedi are, you know, peaceful people, or they try to be. But, you know, it's not like they've never killed an animal that has attacked them, you know? Like, go back to Attack of the Clones, when Obi-Wan frickin' destroyed the Acolyte, the big green thing with the pinchers. He frickin' threw a spear in that thing's neck.
And then he cut the legs off.
Yeah, then he cut all of its legs off. Jedi will attack if provoked. You know, like, I think they thought it would be this morally bad thing if Rey goes out and attacks this giant snake. And it's like, no, you can kill the giant snake. That's okay. That's fine. And especially since you want people to think she's turning to the dark side. Like, if you want to have this really brutal scene where she just, like, decapitates this giant snake, do that.
Or, like, break its neck.
Yeah, it's something, like, extremely violent, because, like, look at Luke, you know, in Return of the Jedi. Like, he used the force choking ability on those guards to get through, and we were like, okay, no one's messing with Luke in this movie. But Rey was, you know, she's just like, guys, it just needs a little bit of help. And I get it, like, Jedi are nice, and that's fine, but, like, it reminds me of this post where this kid, like, in school, let some bully beat him up. I don't know if this is real, but, like, it's this thing, like, this, like, Facebook post that people have shared around a lot. And it's like, this kid let this other kid beat him up and didn't fight back because he said it wasn't the Jedi way.
Oh, and I'm pretty sure I heard about this.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, I don't know if that's real or not. I don't know if that really happened. But yeah, like, it's not a bad thing to have your character do morally ambiguous things, even though I wouldn't even call this a morally ambiguous thing. You know, and that's why these characters in the sequel trilogy are so flat, is because they're really not like allowed to do much, you know, and like this movie really doesn't challenge any of the characters. Like, we're supposed to believe that it challenges Rey and like that she really thinks about being a Sith, but obviously she doesn't, because like I said, every time she's presented with that choice, she's like super scared of it. Mm-hmm. And like, if we want to believe she could actually fall to the dark side, that maybe she's not the good character we all thought she was, you gotta see her really consider that, or like unconsciously slip into it like Luke did. And no, I'm not talking about the Force lightning. I already went over the lack of logic behind that.
But the thing that really confuses me though is the scene where Rey and Kylo are fighting, but they're switching locations.
It's supposed to be some sort of evolution of the Force Skyping thing from the last movie. So I don't like it either. What it's supposed to be, like, we're introduced to this concept of a Force dyad. Kylo and Rey are supposed to be one of these Force dyads, and apparently they're supposed to be one every generation or a few generations or something like that, even though we've never heard of it before. And it's basically something that I think JJ came up with to try and keep this connection between Rey and Kylo without actually, like, having them in a lot of the same locations, you know, like you said. And it really just becomes confusing. You know what I mean? Like, it really just did it because they wanted some interesting visuals. But it doesn't work, in my opinion. The whole Force dyad thing, a lot of people have used that for some crazy excuses to, like, explain why the Force healing worked between Kylo and Rey, but it's just a bunch of, like, it's just a big mess to me, man. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I love Star Wars, like, crazy, and I know so much about it. So when these movies, like, introduce a bunch of stuff and I don't understand it and I don't care about it, I feel like that just says a lot, and that's how a lot of fans feel about it. You know, I don't think any of these new Force abilities are cool or well explained or even Force-like. You know what I mean? It's just, again, it just seems like they're trying to go bigger, and but not in the ways they should be. They should be trying to go deeper. You know, continue the story, like the narrative that we left on in Return of the Jedi, but instead it's really just focused on doing its own thing. And I'm like, if you want to do that, don't call them episodes 7, 8, and 9. If you want to do your own thing, set them in a completely different time period, or hell, just don't even make it Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, if you really are only concerned with changing things about Star Wars, maybe you shouldn't be making a Star Wars movie.
But like, also, it really confuses me why objects disappear. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, whenever like they knock down the statue that the helmet of Vader is on, the Vader helmet disappears and goes to where Kylo is.
Yeah, again, it's just for cool visuals, because they think that's really cool and really trippy, and it's really not. It's just, again, confusing.
Also, the coin that that one girl has.
Uh-huh.
Why does she give it to them?
Yeah, that's
It's
another
such
thing.
a rare coin to have.
Yeah, like, one of the reasons that people say Rey is a Mary Sue, that I don't think a lot of people point out enough. Like, a lot of people, when you hear them say Rey is a Mary Sue, it's just because, like, oh, she fights really good, and, you know, she already knows everything. And I would totally agree with that. Again, those are good reasons to call her a Mary Sue. But another reason that she's a Mary Sue, in my opinion, is that just everybody likes her. Everyone is really drawn to her. And it doesn't make sense to me, because Rey is actually pretty unlikable most of the time. Like, dude, when she freaking drops a tree on BB-8 and Poe's all concerned about him, she's just all like, I don't care, and then like walks over to Finn. But it's a really common trait of a Mary Sue or a Gary Stu, if you want to apply that to a male character. Doesn't really matter to me. It's just that everybody likes them, and that kind of grants them access to things easily. Like, would it have been cooler if they had to fight for that coin? Because, like, dude, that character, her name is Zori Bliss. Don't care about her at all. That helmet is terrible.
Trash.
Like, people
so bad.
people say her suit looks like a Power Ranger suit, and I think that's an insult to Power Ranger suits. Like, let's be a little fair here, guys. But yeah, wouldn't it have been so much cooler if, like, they had to, like, duel for it or something, you know? But no, she's just like, like, Rey kicks her ass or something, and then Zori's like, not that you care, but I like you. And I'm like, first off, what a cringy line, and second off, what a, like, just bad writing, you know what I mean? Like, imagine if, like, in Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin and Obi-Wan arrive to rescue Palpatine, and Dooku comes up, and then, like, Dooku's like, you know, I like you guys. I'll just hand him over. You know, it just, like, no, give me some good action. You know, give me some fighting, because, like, again, I don't think anybody actually likes this Zori Bliss character. We get a little bit of history between her and Poe, but it's all hollow to me. I don't care about Poe at this point.
But how do you feel about how they completely destroyed the rule of two?
Oh, I love that, actually. No,
Oh,
I'm just kidding. So in this movie, and this is another thing, there are so many things that JJ just does not know how to give us answers to. He's fine with giving us these huge visuals, but when it comes to explaining it, he's like, nah, mate, we'll leave that for the book people.
Yeah.
So we have what I can only assume to be billions of Sith. We have the Sith Troopers. Are they Sith themselves? They're called Sith Troopers. Do they have Force abilities? Like,
Because we can see.
yeah, I mean, because if they do, then dude, they could like overwhelm any like army in Star Wars history. Like, if you have a Force sensitive army, like, as much as I love the Clone Troopers, but you're gonna hand it to the Clone Troopers, dude. But against these like resistance fighters and the Space Horses, no way. But yeah, so we have all the Sith Troopers, and then we have a bunch of these Sith cult people in the stadium or whatever. What are these guys? Because 30 years ago, you know, in Return of the Jedi, the only two Sith at that point were Palpatine and Vader. And they both died in that movie. I don't care what you say. This movie's not canon. Palpatine died. I'm just kidding. I understand these movies are canon, but, like, the more I have to remind myself that, the more it just makes me want to drop the score. And 15 is already very low, so it doesn't have much. It doesn't have much room to go.
My 12 is very low too.
Yeah,
There's not
like,
much I can go.
See, like, if really, I like this movie about a 0% out of 100, but it has some well done shots and some well done, like, visual effects, and
That's basically it.
it's fine. It's like the bare minimum. Okay, this is one of my least favorite sayings of all time, and people won't stop saying it. They keep saying, "Oh, that was the most movie of all time." or something like that. And I'm like, what you're saying there is this movie was forgettable, or that it was bland, and that would be a major compliment to this movie, is to just say it was bland. Like, Phantom Menace has some bland moments. Attack of the Clones has some bland moments. This is bad. Like, this is terrible. And also that, like I said, that quote is just super cringy to me. I just hate when people say that. They'll just be like, "Oh, that movie really movied like that. That was the most movie of all time." I'm just like, "Shut up!" Like nobody says that.
Nobody says that.
I know this has nothing to do with the movie, but like imagine like if you just like started saying that about other things. Like somebody was like, "Oh my God, this soda's really good. Here, try a sip," and you. That is the most soda that ever soda'd. Like, I'll be like, "Oh no, leave me alone. You're not my friend anymore. Go away." So stop saying that.
Please.
PSA, quick PSA, stop saying that.
Also, another thing that really trips me up is when Palpatine like does lightning in the sky and then knocks down the enemy ships, but not his own.
There are so many things wrong with this. Like, first off, I understand Palpatine is very powerful. I'm not gonna deny that. But like, dude, he shoots lightning beams in the sky like the size of buildings, and it's like he's just one dude. Like,
yeah,
and he's not even fully himself. He's like he needs this crane thing to carry him around half the time, and I'm like, guys, is he a clone? Is this his actual body that somehow survived 2 explosions? Because if it's a clone, he should be in perfect health. But like we see his fingers all deteriorated, and sure you can say it looks cool or whatever. I mean, I would kind of disagree, but again, what is it? Because when you really think about it, it makes no sense. Because like they've got all these Snoke clones, and it kind of implies maybe he's a clone, but if he's a clone, he should be in perfect health. And then like, how did he clone himself if he was dead? Like, did he have other people clone him? And what would they even had to create that clone? Because there's no DNA left. Like they, unless he just like kept his hair in a jar somewhere in the Death Star, and then someone very quickly got that jar of hair off of it. Before it exploded. See, dude, like, think about this.
No sense.
Like, these are the stupidest questions I've ever asked myself. And it's like, when your movie is making people ask if Palpatine kept jars of hair on other planets, like, I think he made a bad movie. I'm sorry. Not really. But, dude, it's whack. It's so whack. Yeah, see, there's so many things I could say about this movie. Like, really, honestly, there's about at least 1 or 2 things in every single scene that I could break down and be like, here's why this contradicts this. Here's why this is just straight up not interesting. But it really, I think, comes down to the final scene. This is supposed to be a culmination of every movie. You know what I mean? But, like, it hates the prequels and, like, only vaguely copies things from the originals. Like, the end of this movie is basically a ripoff of the victory celebration scene. So I went and saw Return of the Jedi when it was put back in theaters last week. And I'll be honest, I've seen Return of the Jedi so many times. When I saw a victory celebration on the screen for the first time, like, I teared up. Mm-hmm. I wasn't, like, bawling in my seat, I wasn't, like... But, it really got to me. It was like, this feels like a finale. And what's crazy about it is, like, this feels like a finale even before half the series was even made at the time. Like, you can watch the first 6 movies, and Return of the Jedi still feels like this amazing finale. We see the whole galaxy in a celebration. And this movie tries to do the same thing. Like, the exact same thing. It copies the exact same shots. It, shows some of the exact same locations. But I feel nothing. Like, that scene doesn't even make me angry. By that point, I've already gotten so much anger out that I'm just like, whatever. Yeah. It's just sad. Like, it really represents exactly what the sequel trilogies are, or what the sequel trilogy movies are, and that's just a hollow shell of what Star Wars used to be. And it's sad, man. And the scene where Rey looks up and looks into the stars and hears voices of, a lot of previous Jedi. And what's really interesting is we even have some really obscure ones in there. We have, like, Ayla Secura. You don't even know who that is. She's, I'm not making fun of you, I'm just saying. She's one of the prequel Jedi who actually doesn't get any lines in the movies.
That's probably why I don't know her.
Yeah, like, it's really weird. You're willing to include some of these characters, but only as a voice, Like, it's bad enough you brought back Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, Samuel L. Jackson, Liam Neeson, Ashley Eckstein, the voice of Ahsoka. Yeah, this movie basically kills Ahsoka. Because now we know Ahsoka's dead somehow. So thanks for that one, Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, we have all these people, and it's like, you think it's enough to tie this whole series together, to give us at least, like, to give us like 2 lines from them each? No. You already took Anakin's sacrifice away. You already brought back Ewan once, just to not really do anything of actual substance with him. This doesn't make up for it. You know, and it really feels like they thought that was going to make it up to me. Like, and fans like me who really do like the prequels, you know, and to me, it's not even just the prequels that these movies are bashing. It's the originals, too. Like, in my opinion, it's kind of just as bad to make an exact copy of something as it is to ignore it. You know what I mean? Like, these are all movies in the same series. They're supposed to work together.
How do you feel that Rey is a Palpatine?
This is a really interesting thing. So, we talked in our Force Awakens video that J.J. Abrams didn't actually have answers to a lot of the things that he set up. At that point, they still... I'm pretty sure even by the time of The Last Jedi, they were still throwing around ideas for Rey, and then kind of just settle on Palpatine, like, pretty much at the last minute when writing Rise of Skywalker scripts. I think it's terrible, honestly. Even if they kept Palpatine dead, I want these movies to be rooted in the movies that came before, obviously. But, like, it just feels so forced, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted these movies to be, like, a natural follow-up to the original, you know, like, not like, oh, this person is related to this person, and this person is actually, you know, this person's cousin. And funny thing about cousins, though.
Oh, no.
We gotta bring up that that old Kylo and Rey kiss. It's like, I know they're not like exact like perfect cousins, but like
they're still related.
It's just enough to make it weird. It's just enough to be like, why did Star Wars fall into the incest trap yet again? But yeah, I hate that Rey is a Palpatine, and I think it just makes it even worse when she calls herself a Skywalker at the very end of this movie. That might actually be my least favorite scene in all of Star Wars, when Rey declares herself a Skywalker. I never felt any sort of real relationship between her and Luke or her and Leia. They never really have any super meaningful scenes together, like, but the movie wants us to feel like she's basically their daughter, and again, like, it's so weird, you know, and it just, they don't have any good scenes, and it, like, really think about it. This movie, which is called Rise of Skywalker, ends with a Palpatine taking the Skywalker name after the very last one has just died off. You didn't do a good job, JJ, and everyone else involved. I'm sorry. I have to just say I don't think you did a good job.
Like, you couldn't have done anything more backwards than...
Yeah, like really, you couldn't have done much worse. Like, again, I gave this movie a 15, and I'm starting to regret giving it even that high a score. Like, you couldn't have done much more wrong. Let's talk about the soundtracks for a second.
Because, what soundtrack?
Exactly. People say, this makes me so mad. People say, oh, the one thing that was consistently great throughout all the Star Wars movies was the soundtracks. And I'm like, dude, when was the last time you listened to Duel of the Frickin' Fates? And then people be like, but Rey's theme is really good. And
what
I'm like, first off, yeah, I can't even remember that. And second off, what is as good as Duel of the Fates? Or the Imperial March, or Across the Stars, or Battle of the Heroes, or anything like from the first 6, dude. Like, these movies, and most of the soundtracks from the sequels are just like, I swear to God, they're just like repitched ones from the originals. You know, like, they'll be like, oh, Yoda's back, we're gonna play Yoda's theme, and I'm like, I don't care, you know, like, that's not enough for me, I'm sorry, you know, I know it gets some people going, you know, or like, oh, Palpatine's back, we're gonna play Palpatine's theme, and I'm like, hey,
no.
Let's, like, do something new, please, you know, because, like, Duel of the Fates, Across the Stars, Battle of the Heroes are nothing like what came before, but it's still in line with, like, it still sounds very Star Wars, and it just amplifies those scenes even more. Like, you know, try to imagine Duel of the Fates without Duel of the Fates. They're so synonymous that people call that scene the soundtrack's, you know, name. And, dude, like, there's just nothing like that in the sequels. I'm sorry. There's no moment in the sequels where something extraordinary is happening and the music swells and I just light up and fall in love with it. That doesn't happen. So I wanted to just say that real quick. Yeah. Just to stomp out any positives that people might have about this movie. Because I think a lot of them are very generous. Yeah. A lot of things that I've heard that are nice about this movie are very generous.
Like, Here's the thing, right? The reason why, there's one reason why people really like this movie is because they consider that the sequels are their own trilogy, which it's not. It's part of a saga.
Right, exactly. Like, it's really not much of an argument. We talked a little bit about this last week to say that, oh, well, the sequels are still an amazing trilogy on their own. And I'm like, no, dude, these movies hate each other. Another thing that people have said about this movie that is very generous is that Kylo at least has a good redemption. No, he doesn't. Think about what this scene is. Han is not a Force ghost here. And, when asked about that, like Harrison Ford was asked about that, somebody was like, were you a Force ghost in Rise of Skywalker? And he goes, what the hell is a Force ghost? So I think that means no.
I think that gives you your answer right
Yeah,
there.
exactly. And, so basically what this scene is two things. One, Kylo Ren losing his frickin' marbles. And two, he's forgiving himself, subconsciously or not. He's having this this conversation, and oh my god, imagine Finn just being right off screen, just seeing Kylo completely talk to himself. For some reason, that makes people sad. That makes people tear up. They're like, "Oh, this is so emotional. This is so great."
Oh, dude.
And I'm like, "No, this is Kylo forgiving himself." And there's been a really good fan edit or two, and a lot of just rewrites where Anakin is here, the one talking to him. And do you know how much better that works? Because Anakin had a redemption and a fall, very similar to Kylo. So for one, he's just gonna have a lot more to say. He's gonna have a lot more to relate to there. Dude, Anakin, he was the main character of the first 6 movies, and it's a very obvious thing to see him not pictured at all in this trilogy. I know they don't like the prequels. You can have your personal opinions, whatever. If you don't like the prequels, I'm not saying you're stupid or whatever. But when you're making these movies, you have to honor that too. You know what I mean? So when you take the main character from the first 6 movies and then you just pretend it doesn't exist until 2 just recorded lines in your very last movie, there's a big gap there. We have revealed in this movie that Palpatine has been talking to Kylo in Vader's voice, and I'm like, oh, well, first off, that doesn't make any sense. But how could Anakin allow this to happen? Anakin, according to these movies, Anakin just laid back and trick his grandson into turning to the dark side. Dude, you're just it would have taken a lot more than just one of those changes to fix this trilogy. But again, what makes me hate it so much, what makes all 3 of these movies score less than a 50 for me, is the fact that I just don't think they tried, especially in this movie. I think they really just tried to push out a movie and was like, yeah, that's Star Wars, right? It's got an X-Wing in it, a TIE fighter, and it really just, it bums me out, dude. Imagine if we had 9 really good Star Wars movies. Sounds like you're getting really tired.
No, I hate this, dude.
Yeah, I also really hate this.
Drains the life out of me.
It's really interesting because Last Jedi, it's so boring. It's subtly bad, but this movie is so in your face bad. Yeah. I just don't know how these movies have fans. If you do, if you're watching this and you love Rise of Skywalker, this isn't a jab at you. I just don't get it. And I don't think this movie was made for us, or even for you, if you're a Star Wars fan. I think it was just made to make money. And that's the difference between these movies and George Lucas's Star Wars movies, is those were made, George had to fight to get each one of those movies made. Do you know how many people tried to, punch down at him when he was trying to work his way up and make those movies? The fact that we have any Star Wars movies, especially the first one, oh my god, the filming conditions and all the people that gave George a hard time, and he got past all of that. And then these movies had it easy. Star Wars was already established at this point. And since a lot of people didn't like the prequels, they really felt like they didn't have to try. They were like, we'll just do things with practical effects and people will like it. And I'm sorry, guys, it didn't work.
It sucks that we will never get to see what George Lucas could have made with the sequels.
I know, we'll always have information about it. We have some ideas of, some plot points that he had for it. But I really would love to see those movies made by George Lucas. I'm not saying they'd be perfect, but I want to see his version of his story. You know what I mean? We were talking earlier, and it really feels like with the sequels, it feels like, say you're trying to binge watch a show on Netflix, and then right in the middle of the show, it feels like you just turned off that show and started watching a different one. And again, I know a lot of the dialogue in the prequels is bad, but I would rather have bad dialogue than a lack of effort, a lack of originality, because I really think that that's something you can't argue with. Like, even if you don't like George Lucas or think that he sucks as a director, I think you just can't argue that he's super creative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I would rather have, like, good ideas with mediocre execution than no ideas with very safe execution.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy how these movies, like, when they try to take risks, it's always the wrong risk, and they always but they always want to also play it safe. It's so weird, dude. I think that's everything, though. I think we have finally exhausted our thoughts about this movie, and I don't know what else to say other than this one just breaks my heart. Finally done with the sequel trilogy. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, especially if you made it to this point. Be sure to leave a like and comment down below to join the discussion, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace!
I hate this movie.